Okay, let's really dig into something that feels almost like a superpower in our crazy, noisy world today.
Hmm.
The power of saying less. We're focusing on Law 4 from the 48 Laws of Power. Always say less than necessary.
It's a fascinating one.
It really is. Forget that idea that you have to fill every single silence. What if holding back, that very restraint could actually make you more influential?
Especially now, right, with constant pings, emails, social media, just nonstop communication.
Exactly. Could strategic silence be like the sharpest tool you have?
It's possible.
We're going to explore how being more selective, more careful with your words, might make people really listen when you do speak. Maybe even view you with a bit more respect. Or maybe even caution.
Well, what's really interesting here is how basic the act of interpreting words is for us. It's like we're all amateur code breakers, constantly trying to figure out what people really mean, what their intentions are, just from what they say.
Yeah, decoding all the time.
Right. And this law just flicks that completely.
Mm.
If you give out fewer verbal clues, you basically jam the code breaking machine.
Oh, yeah.
You leave people with less to work with, less to analyze, and definitely less that they could potentially twist or use against you later.
Yeah.
It's like strategic ambiguity.
Exactly. It reminds me of like showing just a tiny corner of a painting.
Hmm.
Your mind instantly starts trying to fill in the rest, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And the picture you imagine is often way more powerful, more intriguing than if the artist had just shown you everything up front.
That's a great analogy. And that withholding, that deliberate lack of information, it creates a kind of vacuum.
And people hate vacuums.
They really do. Nature abhors them, and so does human psychology, it seems. So people rush to fill that space with their own ideas, their own speculation.
And that's where the power dynamic shifts, right?
Precisely. The speculation often leads them to attribute more depth, more thought, maybe even more power to the person who's keeping quiet.
Mm.
And this ties straight into control. If you're not the one doing all the talking, you're the one observing more. You're listening. You get to control the pace of the conversation, really.
You choose your moments.
You choose your moments, exactly. And because they're chosen, because they're rarer, those words land with so much more weight than just, constant chatter.
Okay.
As the book points out, when you're, let's say, economical with your words, others start filling in the blanks themselves. And they often project more onto you, more knowledge, maybe stronger intent than you actually showed. That gap, that space for interpretation, that can be a surprisingly potent advantage.
Okay, but it feels so natural to just jump in, to explain ourselves, make sure everyone gets it, what's going on inside us that makes us want to, well, over-explain. And why is resisting that urge so powerful?
Well, if you think about basic human drives, a lot of it comes from wanting to feel competent, right?
Yeah.
We want to show we know things, we understand.
Sure, impress people a bit.
Yeah. Or maybe just avoid awkwardness. Silence can feel really uncomfortable in social settings. And then there's the simple desire to connect. We often think, maybe subconsciously, that if we share more, people will understand us better, like us more.
But you're saying that impulse, that need to talk, can actually backfire pretty badly. How does talking too much weaken what we're trying to say?
Think about it like this. The more words you throw out there, the more chances you create for your main point to get lost.
Diluted.
Exactly, diluted.
Mm-hmm.
Or for something unintentional to slip out. It's like trying to spread a tiny bit of butter over a huge piece of bread. The flavor just disappears.
Right.
Unnecessary details can muddy the waters. Constantly justifying yourself can make you sound insecure, like you don't really believe your own point.
Okay, that makes sense.
And just purely statistically, the more you talk, the higher the odds you'll say something dumb, or something that gets misunderstood, or contradicts what you said 5 minutes ago, or reveals a weakness you didn't intend to show.
So it's not just about being quiet, it's about the effect of that quietness, the impact of restraint.
Precisely. Psychologically, we tend to value scarce things more, don't we?
True.
Words are no different. When someone speaks sparingly, their words often seem more valuable, more thought through. If someone isn't constantly trying to grab the spotlight with their voice, when they do chime in, people tend to lean in, pay more attention.
Their contributions stand out.
They do. And just from a practical memory perspective, short, punchy statements stick in our heads way better than long, rambling speeches.
Okay, this is clicking in theory, but let's talk about real life. Can you give some examples, figures, maybe historical or even current ones, who really nailed this law? What happened?
Well, the source material brings up Napoleon Bonaparte, and he's a really good case study. Apparently, in negotiations, He wasn't the guy holding court.
Interesting.
He was known for being a really sharp listener, just taking it all in. And when he did speak, his words were often deliberately, well, vague, ambiguous.
To keep him guessing.
Exactly. It kept his opponents off balance, unsure of his real plans or bottom line. That calculated vagueness was a big advantage for him.
So the silence wasn't just empty, it was a tactic.
An active tactic, absolutely.
What about someone whose nickname literally screamed quiet?
Calvin Coolidge, Silent Cal. He's the classic example, isn't he?
Mm.
That story about the dinner guest betting she could get him to say more than 2 words.
And he just says, you lose.
You lose, perfect. His reputation for saying so little actually amplified the power of everything he did say. It created this whole aura around him, like he was incredibly thoughtful, weighing every single word.
So people assumed his silence meant deep thinking.
Right. Which made his occasional pronouncements seem incredibly potent.
And fast forward to today. Who's using this effectively now in our world?
Well, think about someone like Jay-Z,
Yeah.
global superstar, right?
Yeah.
But he's actually pretty selective about his interviews, his public statements. He doesn't just spout off about everything. When he speaks, it feels measured, intentional.
And that adds to his mystique.
Absolutely. That careful control over his words is a huge part of his brand, his power. In a world where celebrities often share everything, his restraint makes him stand out, seem more substantial.
And it's not just for famous people, surely. This must play out in, like, regular offices, too.
Oh, absolutely. Think about a leader in a business meeting. You've probably seen this. There's the person who dominates, talks over everyone.
Yep.
And then there's the leader who mostly listens, really listens, lets everyone else talk, share their ideas, maybe debate a bit. And then, near the end, they offer a concise summary or ask one sharp question or give a clear, brief direction.
And everyone snacks to attention for that.
Exactly. That leader often gets way more respect than the loud one. Their silence signals careful thought, evaluation. So when they finally speak, their words carry serious weight. People assume it's important because they didn't just blurt it out.
Okay, so let's say someone listening is thinking, right, I definitely talk too much. How do I actually start doing this, like tomorrow? What are some practical steps?
Yeah, good question. The source gives some solid starting points. At work, for instance, just make a conscious effort to speak less in meetings. Before jumping in, actually ask yourself, is this contribution essential right now?
Filter yourself a bit more.
Right. And when you do speak, aim for directness. Get to the point. Also, crucially, practice getting comfortable with those little pauses in conversation.
Oh, that's hard.
It is. Resist that impulse to immediately fill every gap. Sometimes the most revealing stuff comes out when you just stay quiet and let the other person keep talking.
Let them fill the silence.
Let them fill it.
Yeah.
And another small thing, watch out for those filler words we all use. I think maybe, sort of, just trying to cut those down makes you sound more confident and direct.
Okay, that's solid for the workplace. What about in situations that are more back and forth, like a negotiation or a sales pitch?
The silent pause.
Yeah.
That's a classic, powerful technique there.
How does that work?
After you state your price or make your offer or present your key point,
Yeah.
just stop talking. Be quiet.
Right.
And wait. That silence puts the ball squarely in their court. It creates anticipation, maybe even a bit of pressure. Often they'll jump in to fill the silence and might reveal something useful or even make a concession just to break the tension. And more broadly in those situations, just aim to listen way more than you talk. That old 70-30 rule, it's pretty good. Listen 70% of the time, talk 30%. The more you truly listen, the more intel you gather, which obviously makes your position stronger when you do speak.
Makes sense. And what about for creators? People putting stuff out there online, building a brand. How does saying less apply?
Even as a creator, you can be strategic. You don't have to share every single detail of your process or your next big project or your overall master plan.
Keep some things close to the chest.
Exactly. Maybe focus more on sharing the results, the finished work, and let that speak. Be deliberate with your captions, your replies online, how you handle interviews. Choose your moments to speak out. When you do, make it count. It builds authority.
Now, we should probably clarify, this isn't about just clamming up entirely or being deliberately obtuse, is it? What are the ways this could go wrong?
That's a crucial point. Yeah, intentional silence used strategically signals strength, but that's totally different from silence born out of, having nothing to say or being afraid to speak up. That's weakness.
Right.
And you've got to be careful not to overuse silence as some kind of obvious manipulation tactic. If people feel you're just playing games with them by being stonily silent, it'll backfire. It breeds distrust.
So no passive aggression.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
And also, avoid being vague just for the sake of sounding mysterious if there's no actual substance or strategy behind it. It just annoys people or makes you seem like you don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, so it's purposeful restraint, not just being difficult or empty. How do you use this power effectively then?
Well, remember your nonverbals, your tone of voice, your posture, eye contact. All of that communicates volumes, sometimes more than the words themselves. You can convey confidence and control without saying much.
Let your presence speak.
Exactly. And get good at asking powerful questions. A really insightful question can steer the conversation and get others to reveal information, all without you needing to give a long speech.
Turn the tables a bit.
Right. And really embrace letting others fill the silences. Just wait. Be patient. You'd be amazed what people will tell you if you just give them the space.
This feels so incredibly relevant right now, maybe more than ever. We're just drowning in noise, aren't we? Everyone's shouting online, offline.
Totally. In 2025, in this world of constant communication overload, anyone who practices verbal restraint automatically stands out from the crowd.
Like a quiet signal in all the static.
Precisely. Mystery, nuance, thoughtfulness, these have become rare and therefore valuable. As the book puts it so well, if everyone's talking, no one's listening but silence. Silence stands out.
So, wrapping this up, the big idea is that by choosing our words carefully, by choosing not to speak sometimes, we gain significant control over how other people see us.
Absolutely. And controlling perception in so many situations is fundamental to having influence, to having power. When you're selective, your words hit harder and you tap into that underestimated strength of silence.
Control your words, you control perception. Control perception. Well, you influence what happens next. Say less, mean more, and let silence do some of that heavy lifting for you. Wow. Some really potent stuff to think about there.
Indeed. And next time, we're going to tackle Law 5. So much depends on reputation. Guard it with your life.
Ooh, looking forward to that one.